She Blaze, where we're bringing you cannabis culture from a woman's point of view. And as always, here to elevate the cannabis industry. I'm one of your hosts, Ice Dawson, Cannabis Socialite.
And I am Dasheeda Dawson, the WeedHead.
Hi, sis.
Hey, sis. Hey, sis.
On today's episode of She Blaze, Michigan needs repairs in cannabis justice. A city in Wisconsin takes its first steps to legalization, and New York State announced new CBD guidelines.
Ooh.
So let's dig in.
Oh my goodness. Of course, we have such a busy day. I'm actually glad that we actually have our associate producer back. We gave her a shout out last week because we was doing a lot with the hands. It was looking crazy.
Right.
So
and it wasn't even sparkly.
No. Anyway, of course, we got to kick things off with the high of the week. And my high of the week is like super dope. I gifted the whole family the high of the week. My high of the week is Be Rooted, which is a Black-owned, soror-owned, aka shout out to my soror. But yeah, no, this is just such a dope brand. First of all, Jasmine is someone that I work with at Target, and it is her stationery brand. It's something that she's been talking about for a long time. Be rooted in culture, stationery with a purpose. And I'm gonna be real, this little thing keeps me ready, so I am staying ready all the time. The Slim Journal is really $20 a set of 3. I bought it for my sisters because she's got a few different options. Stay ready, act up. Trust the journey. It will protect your energy. Things that, I think we all talk about, we say it, and this allows us to kind of really be it. So that's my high of the week, Be Rooted. You can go to berootedco.com to pick up your own, and she has many different options. Spiral, this is the one that's a travel and go.
Yes, I love the Spiral one, actually. It's like my favorite little quick journal to plug some thoughts I have in my head. But my high of the week is actually Black-owned too. We've done them before. Simply Smoking. I am rocking their I'm Simply Smoking tea. And, I really love this because I love having cannabis accessories and apparel, and it still is like something you would buy off of like Target or Forever 21. So I really loved it. It's Black-owned. The tea is $27.95. It fits for women, so it has the perfect shape. Sometimes it's too bulky. Nope. This is the perfect shape. I will say go a size up. And they're a smoking shop too. So they not only do they have apparel, they have smoking accessories for women, for people that feel like they're missing some things when it comes to cannabis consumption or just tobacco consumption. So I really love it. Check them out. Simply Smoking Smoke Shop, Black-owned. Shout out to them. And thank you for the share.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love them. So what are we doing today? We got a lot going on. Let's get into these hot topics.
I know that's right. Well, we are starting off, still really advocating for the things we need to be repaired in the cannabis industry. So our first hot topic is about a Michigan man that has served 25 years of a 60-year cannabis conviction. And this is really, really important because ultimately I feel like Michigan is legal. Why are we still allowing people to stay in jail over something that was 20 of years ago? Like, you can't even tell me that cannabis is still around. Like, can you find that in the evidence locker?
They smoked that already, girl, or sold it. But no, real talk.
Wow.
I just, I definitely agree with you. I feel like there is a disconnect between the birth of these industries, but not the release of prisoners. If we agree that it's been wrongfully criminalized, then this is like a no-brainer. And I'm guessing that you got more details behind what the government is trying to say as to why this person can't get out.
Well, let's just start from the top. Michael Thompson of Michigan, he was selling a low cannabis transaction to an undercover informant in 1994. Now, he ended up being convicted over trumped up charges because after they arrested him, they got a warrant to search his house. And because of his past history, he had got a gun charge on top of the cannabis transaction because they found a gun that was registered to his wife and a vintage antique gun that wasn't even usable. So they decided to add that on to the cannabis charge, and he ended up being sentenced to 60 years. Now, reports are he is a model prisoner. I hate to say that type of term, but ultimately he didn't cause trouble in there. It's been 25 years. He did contract COVID this summer, and so he's been in a prison rehabilitation center, and now he's asking the parole board to please let him out. Now, some of the transcripts I read really made me a little skin crawl a little bit. You know, he said he's a model citizen. And within the prison, 13 people spoke up on his behalf, including his family members. He's lost quite a few people since being in jail. He missed out on so many years. But basically, the parole board was just like, you know, they'll make the recommendation to the governor, but, you know, he better really see that he is a good citizen when he gets out, to, you know, because he is a leader in the parole board, allowing people for cannabis convictions. So they really want him to be a good citizen. They don't want to see him back in prison as if, you know, he was just a terrible citizen before. Now, when they got him, he was in his late 20s, early 30s, and he's basically spent the rest of his life in prison.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm kind of, I think it's important for us to be advocates, right? If you're going to be an entrepreneur in this industry, you're going to have to be an advocate. You cannot possibly make money off of the growth of an economy when there are people in jail and not say something. That's like making, you know, it's like blood money. This young person, and you said it was a very low weight transaction. So to me, it wasn't like, again, they had captured the cartel's plug and he was moving weight. Not that I even agree with that necessarily, but then the guns that you're talking about are not like sort of these unregistered, scratching off the serial number type guns, but registered gun and an antique gun.
Yes.
And Black or brown man?
It's a Black man.
Of course. And so he got railroaded because he probably didn't have a good attorney that would have been able to throw that shit out, because any other place that would have been thrown out. What's appalling is that this plant has, that was one of millions of stories, right? So while we fight this fight, we fight the fight for the military young man, military honorably discharged vet that got arrested, and I think Alabama, like he, you know, medical card, medical patient. The fact of the matter is that this is, you know, disenfranchisement 101. Is why our communities are unable to really move forward. That man shouldn't be in prison at all. And if at the time they decided, okay, you know, he did something for cannabis based on the amount, again, it doesn't feel like it should have been a prison sentence, even like just a fine, a criminal fine, if we want to make it criminalized. Right. But the guns is why it became a 60-year thing. That is insane.
Well, it's hard because his wife had the gun registered. There are a lot of propaganda online, especially with some of the articles released about him, versus, you know, when you read his real story on his real page where you can sign the petition, because even though the parole board is pushing it up to the governor, they still could have people willing to petition and advocate on behalf of him. You know, they basically are making it seem like he had a bunch of guns, seem like it was a cartel. But the real story is it was 2 guns, one was registered and one was antique. So again, you got to read through some of the media. We know media is really how we get a lot of information, but also it could be misinformation. I mean, and so we got to always set the facts straight.
For marijuana, for cannabis, it has been misinformation. That's fact. Like, it's not, it could be. 99% of what was being has been told in media up until probably around 2010, you started to see a shift. And even then, we still, as people who have worked in the industry, have to make sure and fight that the right language gets used. I mean, earlier this year, and no disrespect to this publication, but they did a story on me and they called me the pot czar. And I was like, can you please change that? So yeah, I had to go back to them and let them know that that wasn't going to make sense. And so media does perpetuate a lot of the stuff that we are fighting against within the industry, and being able to use cannabis as a reason that a Black or brown person should be policed, over policed, harassed, police brutality, arrested at such a high rate as compared to white counterparts when the usage rate is the same. And then not just also in the transaction piece of it, because again, he was trying to sell it, and a lot of people do. I mean, it's the legacy market is full of very, very big players and very, very small day-to-day hooking up your cousin and your friend players.
Right.
But it is one of those things where still don't believe the hype. 90% of cannabis arrests have been for possession alone. So again, we tell this story because he was caught in an undercover transaction, but it could have been that he'd have just walking down the street smell like cannabis. If they found that on him, got that opportunity to search his house, he could still be in the same situation. So that's why we fight. That's why we have to push back.
We do have to push back, but the undercover informant was not law enforcement. So that is part of it too, so our justice system needs you to advocate. Yes, it was.
So you was hooking up your cousin and your friend with a little amount and they snitched. Like, that's how I feel probably went down. He don't sound like he don't even got no real gun. He don't got a big operation.
No, but because when he was younger, he did get some felonies through like burglaries and stuff. So unfortunately, this is the system still railroading, but because it was his last conviction, he had to stay in jail because of the whole like 90s thing when they were pushing like the criminals having like 3 strikes you're out.
Yes, 3 strikes and you're out was part of how people are still serving sentences for BS. So 3 strikes you're out could easily have been 3 strikes you found with a dime bag in your pocket, and now you are in jail for the rest of your natural life. I'm speechless, and mostly I'm also always concerned, given I also have a young Black man that I am raising. It's just insane. We've got to fight. We put the URL in the chat. FreeMichaelThompson.com is really important for you to sign up and at least let your voice be heard that you don't think that this is right, because it isn't.
Hello, and let the algorithm pick that up so you can read about more stories. And really, we got to keep staying in the Midwest because they're making some changes out there as far as cannabis. I think everybody trying to figure out the little coin.
Of course.
So our second hot topic is about Wisconsin. Their capital city, Madison, voted to decriminalize cannabis. Now, that was their whole council. They decided, we're going to decriminalize it. We're going to decriminalize it for 18 and up. So that means if you're caught with it on your body, if you are consuming in public, you are allowed to carry up to 1 ounce. Now we know that. And you can consume on private property. So that's really powerful also, which is a big deal in these like little rural areas. They love charging you for paraphernalia. So another important thing, if you are just caught with a paraphernalia cannabis, maybe you have a weight in your pocket, maybe you have a little baggie, you cannot be charged.
Well, hallelujah for some things. I mean, it's the first step. We've spent some time in Wisconsin as a team prior to this current role that I'm in. We've had a Native American tribe as a client, and I have been in Wisconsin police handcuffs because of a smell that wasn't even really affiliated with us, but nonetheless, being Black, Wisconsin has also a very high racial disparity rate. Please check out the ACLU, A Tale of Two Worlds. They have listed every state and ranked them on their racial disparities. And so, this is a good move in the right direction, at least decriminalizing. They don't need to be arresting people anymore. These police literally drove probably about a half a mile down the block from a hotel to a McDonald's where we were meeting to come to harass us based on what they felt like was a smell in the hallway of a hotel room that had nothing to do with us. And yes, I had empty pipes, I had empty paraphernalia, and I was getting written up and put in the back of a car for very silly shit. Honestly, I'd never been in handcuffs before.
Right? No, it was definitely frightening. And I think it's really powerful because with all those empty things, you still had to pay a fine. And so with their decriminalization, people will be allowed to consume cannabis where most cigarettes and tobacco products can be consumed. Okay. But
and they still smoke there.
Right. But in prohibited areas and like no permission from the property owner, you will be fined $1.
Interesting. I mean, again, it still feels a little bit extra to have any fine, but at least they're not making it so that hopefully you can have, a backup. And then, because with fines, when you owe the government, that can quickly turn to a warrant when you don't pay for a while. So $1 isn't going to hopefully break anyone. But geez, it's always still, they want to police it. It's a step in the right direction, but it is really almost unnecessary. If you're going to do it, it's like for that dollar, and this is me as a government official talking, I guess, how much are we spending internal to the government on processing that fine, right? So you're going to get stopped. That's the police officer got a little check that he got to get. He's going to take his time and write out the dang on thing. And part of this may be because they may have quotas, right, on how many that they're going to,
they got
a dollar ain't no, criminal fines. That's not driving a big amount of money. Then you got to bring it in. There's going to be an administrative person. So they got a little percentage on their check. And then they got to go and do the process. Like we've already spent $50 to get your $1. So this is like, it's like government math is opposite day.
Okay, it sounds like some people can't count.
Yeah,
really, is what
like,
you're saying. Is like that don't make sense. They running their government like some of these big businesses in the red,
they
honey.
need to just leave it alone. And what would have been easier, and we save money on both sides, is you see someone, you don't do nothing to them because it ain't no reason for you to do anything to them. And you just keep it moving and go find someone who's really committing a crime.
Right. Hello. Well, god dang. Well, the governor, he does promote legalization. He wants some form, but what I'm gonna ask is, what y'all medical marijuana market look like? People so quick to be like, I support legalization, but my access in none of the doggone communities is real. So how does that work? How do you support legalization but have not extended any type of real program? So
it's because you don't understand the cannabis science and you're not competent enough to know that medical is not a backdoor to legalization. It really is. It's medicinal is not a state of mind. It literally is a property of the plant and something we all possess and our mammal pets possess as well. So it's hard. I mean, sometimes when you just like Leo Bridgewater, I have to give him a shout out because he was like, it's like Flintstones and the Jetsons. We are on a whole different like planet as compared to where the lawmakers are. They're in a whole different time zone.
No, seriously. I mean, it's a great way that you explained it, especially because we know a lot of our lawmakers are flip phone generation. So good luck to that. And anything you want to do to produce it, so if they can't use the iPhone, then maybe we might have a problem. So I give you golf claps for decriminalizing, and hopefully other counties in the area will take that on too, because 18 and up, it is not that large of an area. So just going out those city limits could just potentially get you a $500 fine and a night in jail. So be careful, but keep decriminalization on your list. That is small steps you could do. Hot topic number 3. Okay. Because we got to keep this show moving. There is a huge New York State, CBD producer that filed lawsuit against a construction company based out of North Carolina. Now, this is a Hemp Productions Inc. facility that was supposed to be a 710 by 50 foot structure, estimating at 1.7 million facility with one bathroom, lockers, hemp processing and extracting. And it turned out their dream facility turned into a nightmare. It turned into a nightmare because the company that was building the components, several companies, when they got the actual building components, they were damaged. They failed inspection after inspections. They had messed up floors, doors, ceilings. The whole thing was just a hot mess. And ultimately, they did not pass any of their inspections to open the facility.
Wow. So I'm confused. What was the construction company doing?
Well, the construction company didn't ask that, but what they said was, they went to great lengths and expense to address all the customers' concern, but the Hemp Productions did not pay the agreed amount. So, they didn't say that they gave them a effed up building. They said that they ain't paid their money. So I don't know.
Oh, so they gave them an effed up building because they didn't pay their money. Is that what we should infer? I think it's so interesting. Yes, it's so interesting. Well, first of all, this is not a good headline for the cannabis industry. Construction is really, really important. And, we actually think, I don't know, people don't get it, but we actually revitalize the construction sector with cannabis. I mean, cannabis is making everything sexy again, but it's definitely when you got to understand and know how to do cannabis specific construction. In this case, though, it sounds like this construction firm didn't know how to do construction, period, with a T. Like I'm confused about some of the things that was written in it. I was reading, I was like, this sounds like, we need to take them to the People's Court. Okay. Except it was a $1.8 million. People's Court is like what we call small claims court. Right. You can't be more than like $1,000, $2,000, $2,500. But yeah, wow, this is a lot of money that was put in. There are a few New York-based CBD or hemp companies, like a few huge ones, definitely up in Hudson Valley, that are having these type of big construction projects. I also wonder, and this is just something that we got to consider, if this is a little bit of sabotage, because anything that's delaying construction is going to delay the capability for a company to launch.
Ooh, well, David said they got what they paid for, shout out to David Kelman. But yeah, I do kind of agree on that. I do think it may be a little bit of sabotage, because let's be clear, what are the, inspection guidelines and quotas for a CBD hemp facility, processing facility? Those are, who knew? Who knew you could fail inspection? Do y'all know how to build a facility? That's a good question to ask. But I also think that ultimately, this construction company needed to be educated on building a facility. Not every process facility is the same. I'm pretty sure you learned that in whatever construction school you go to. So knowing that hemp construction and facility might have to be different. This is agriculture. You're bringing plants that go from God's green earth inside. How does that work? And I'm pretty sure every indoor agriculture facility is different based on what plant it is, right?
It depends. I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's this plant in particular that has been heavily, regulated, right? And mostly regulated for it to not be used. And so I would argue that probably New York has some stringent rules around the hemp, just in terms of being able to, one, make sure that you can see everything. A lot of the cannabis facilities and manufacturing, the biggest difference is security. But in the manufacturing world, coming from my experience with CPG, there is a high bar, period. And if you're doing construction of buildings for manufacturing, if you know that everyday bar, then you're not going to set up anybody else for failure by like your lack of knowledge about the cannabis aspects, because odds are it is at least at that level. But I think David said it, like they maybe both had ignorance on both sides, that they didn't have very specific understanding about it. Maybe the cannabis company didn't realize just how high that bar is. Sometimes when you want an FDA approved manufacturing facility, you got to do some extra stuff, and maybe they didn't put the money in for that. Or on the other side, where the company is now doing something more specialized. And even though I say crossover, add the vertical, maybe that means they needed to send somebody to one of these New York State hemp symposiums so they can learn a little bit more about the specific compliance there.
Absolutely. I mean, this also just lets you know there's still such a hole in the market for people who have legitimate construction backgrounds, but no, also cannabis. They know how to create cannabis agriculture, extract processing facilities, retail, because I know a lot of y'all retail people don't know what y'all doing. Like, it is not fun to shop in the dispensary. And believe me, I love to shop. I'll be like, ooh, let's go in this store I'll never buy anything from, just to see what it looks like. So dispensary is not like that. Facts. And you point, yes, when I could get you out the house, I definitely try to get you in every store possible.
And guess what? Now that there's COVID, guess how many times because I'm going out the house.
Not often, but you made some really good points, which I think will lead us really into our hot topic. What are the rules and regulations? What are the guidelines that these big companies or small companies are supposed to follow, especially in New York State, because like you said, CBD is taking rule over there with how many facilities and landowners that people are trying to get into the CBD industry. Now, the governor just recently released new guidelines on CBD, and the guidelines include cultivating, processing, extracting, licensing. And it is very long. This is 63-page memo, a lot of definitions, lots of definitions, but no, they are quite long. And it's basically allowing them first. Let's start off from the beginning, actually. So back when hemp legalized, New York State came down really hard on hemp legalization. They basically said no ingestibles. You can't infuse it in anything. You can't smoke it. It can really was like you can only have maybe topicals. You know, they didn't really understand it. This was back when he was calling it a gateway drug still. Now, fast forward a couple years later, they want to rescind some of those guidelines that they're giving and actually give real framework to hemp and the hemp and CBD market.
Well, the question is, are they paying attention to what's happening with the federal government? Remember, we've been talking a lot about the federal government's, new rules, new proposed rules. There was a DEA interim rules where how you're processing, at some point you may actually be in possession of a federally illegal substance based on the rules. So I'm curious on how closely New York has tied itself to the federal government's most recent developments. Because back when you were talking about they did this, it was definitely the case that they didn't have any rules yet. The FDA was still catching up. The DEA was still catching up. And right now, in some ways, I'm a little afraid because they're catching up, but it's still like they're behind. It's weird. I don't know how that works. But nonetheless, they're now starting to have a position. So what is New York saying? And let's talk about how closely it is aligned and which one should you be paying attention to more? That's the question if they conflict.
Well, New York, we know New York State, you say this all the time, you educate a lot of people about it. Basically, New York is a business. It's going to run its licensing process like a business. It's going to run the manufacturing and processing like a business. And it's going to be allowed to still be sold where you can be. You don't have to have a specific license to sell it, like a tobacco license or a alcohol license in that way. Now, the Department of Health is regulating CBD, and it says now you can legally smoke it, eat it, and vape it, but it cannot be infused with alcohol and tobacco. The CBD-infused food and beverages cannot contain more than 25 milligrams of cannabinoid, including CBD. Packaging can't be made to attract minors, and products can't be mixed with alcohol and tobacco, and they can't be sold as patches, inhalers, or injectables, which I think we did a story on when people were injecting themselves with THC. So it also announced that the hemp farmers will continue to operate under existing rules until 2021's growing season. Now, this very long guideline is accepting public comment on regulations from November 10th to January 11th. So you guys got 2 months to go ahead and tell them what you think, especially in New York. And it's really important that you do. Because ultimately they are, I think, if anything, the FDA is going to follow New York State's rules.
I don't know. Maybe. Either way, it's the blind leading the blind. So what I would suggest is if you're commenting, it's not like going to comment on one of these episodes or whatnot. You want to, if you are trying to be an entrepreneur in this industry, it's for the record, right? So you want to put it on your letterhead. You want to make sure that you are signing it, utilizing your title within your company. You want to ensure that your letter includes who you are and what you've done in cannabis, what your expertise is. And then you want to follow up with what you may or may not like. Write what you support. Like if they have something that you are okay with, but if it's not quite the way you're okay with it, for example, CBD being confined to 25 milligrams in a ingestible, which is again, something that's an edible. That sounds a little bit crazy. You know why? Because it may also mean that your little pills that you normally may get, I get very high potency. They can't sell it like that. I get also the whole kid thing, but it's also like, actually, let's do a little bit of science education and know that actually children probably need a daily dosage of 3 to 5 milligrams of CBD anyways, especially if they stuck at home during a damn pandemic. So it's like people are not paying attention and they're applying THC specific types of rules around hemp and CBD. Now, don't get me wrong, all of the cannabinoids are there. And if it's full plant and full spectrum, it's going to have a very, 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 very tiny percentage of THC, less than 0.3% for it to be hemp and legal. But that's
real science.
Yes, that's real science. If it's, to take that into mind as you're thinking about these different product rules is almost like you're not utilizing the information that we now have. I can only imagine what I would have to do to take one like normal dosage. My normal CBD dosages for having early signs of MS is about 30 to 50 milligrams, yet they are maxing the packaging, to a 25 milligram limit of infusion.
Right. Well, you really spoke some important things because you pointed out the main thing I was thinking, like, hey, they really are trying to think this is THC. Some of these rules and regulations seem a little bit extreme to me for people that don't know what CBD is or what it does or understand how it's even grown. They do have a lot of the similar language as far as licensing, how they would license something like THC in California. So it's like, they're using the wrong guidelines here. Yeah. Actually legalize it. And then maybe you could bring this type of guidelines with you. But this is hemp. It's something completely and totally different. Now, all the licensing will be ran through the Department of Health. That is who will be approving all types of licenses. Mm-hmm. And things like having to be able to be tested is really important. It has to be tested. It has to have a QR code on the back that people can go and look up the ingredients and what's in it testing wise. Now, as far as transporting hemp, now a couple seasons back, we talked about a man that was arrested in New York for getting a hemp shipment. Now, in these guidelines, they have things fully listed out about being able to transport hemp into New York State, which is like including it in an enclosed vehicle or container. It has to have its own testing proving that it is hemp. And it's just really, really extreme if you ask me, but I feel like it's so that their police department won't get into trouble again because they have to have a proof of analysis that is hemp. It has to be enclosed vehicle or container, so it can't be just super out there like that. But all these licenses and their certificates have to be visible on the package as well.
Well, I mean, I don't know about whether the package having or the person having that certificate of analysis, because as we also reported on, there are just some police that they don't care. You can show them, especially if you're Black or brown, the amount of hemp that, it actually takes to transport when you are in the business of it, hemp flower. And it does have a terpene smell. It doesn't matter if the police is not retrained on the fact that this is the law and that they should not be using the smell as a way to harass and to detain Black and brown individuals. So yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, you're going to tell me that I need to have it all front and center, like I'm really doing anything other than shipping around a plant, because they don't require all of this if you like shipping roses or if you maybe shipping oranges. Like there's different pieces of agriculture. You do need a tracking of it because we're tracking agriculture in a lot of different states, but that's not the purpose here. The purpose is so the police can make sure they're enforcing it right. Meanwhile, New York has already decriminalized marijuana. So what you enforcing? Because that is not even supposed to be breaking the law. But I guess if you have that much, right, it means you must be part of a cartel or you must be part of an enterprise that is now doing business. And in this case, it is the case that people are doing business for hemp, but clearly these rules show that there isn't enough, one, respect for the plant in total, that the agricultural piece of it is still being like, that's not the reason for labeling and the like. And then also disrespect for the history on enforcement, racially biased enforcement, so that you don't realize that it ain't just because you ain't had the COA, because I bet you bruh had the COA. There's no way you ship that much, and me as a customer, I'm gonna buy that much and you don't give me a certificate of analysis, even if I can just pull it up on my phone, because I don't like paper. Right. But I guarantee, because these people do not really want to believe the person, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. I mean, so I think it's important that we retrain, we re-educate law enforcement. They need to know what's up. New York, they are 40 years behind even on the decriminalization law as is. So we definitely have to demand that as advocates.
Absolutely. Now, of course, these people in the governor's office and the Department of Health in New York State think this is the shizness. They feel like this guideline is the set precedent for all CBD guidelines in America, and it's really ultimately crazy. So since they're accepting public comment, go in, check them, let them know that they are coming in there with prehistoric facts. Like, these things are basically dinosaurs at this point in this industry. No one is using these CBD rules in real life. People actually are using CBD as a medicine, and it's not 25 milligrams.
Yeah, this is why I got to have my own ounces. I keep about, now at this point, 5 ounces on me. I will never, ever, 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 ever again be without my own cannabidiol oil. I don't need the government to have products, right? Because I can make it myself. And that's why home grow is also really important at the minimum for the medical program within a medical cannabis or medical marijuana program, but it is required. I shouldn't have to deal with this.
Absolutely. And again, the health department is accepting public comment between November 10th and January 11, 2021. So you got some time to really read through these 63 pages. Okay. A lot of definitions on what is happening with CBD in the New York State area. And this just lets me know that they are not quite as ready for legalization as they are believing, with New Jersey now pushing for legalization.
They're not ready at all. Furthermore, again, you said FDA is going to follow them. First of all, FDA have front and center on their website about the lack of ability for people to put or infuse CBD into anything that is ingestible or edible. So they are not right now. They got X on that. So that's already like, okay, if I'm a company that's operating within New York, then you basically, as a hemp company, rather than being able to be free and clear from a federal standpoint because there's misalignment, now you're more operating like a marijuana company in New York or any other state where there isn't a federal like mandate, right? Or a federal standard. And I'm not saying that the FDA standard is correct, but the FDA will get your shit taken off of the shelves if they don't like what you're doing. And they've done it, and they've been doing it for the last 2 years since the Hemp Farm Act was passed in 2018. So I think it's important for New Yorkers who are trying to do this business to recognize that the state's levels, while a little bit better, still not there, and maybe pioneering, and maybe eventually FDA will cross this over, is still going to put you in a position where you may be doing something or entering a business model that the FDA currently is not improving. Like, it's not approving.
Right.
The other thing that I didn't see, and I'm going to go through the 60 pages because we're going to write some, but the fact of the matter is that I just do not understand how this DEA interim final rules come into play, right? Because the manufacturing piece of it is where we get to CBD infused anything.
Right.
And if you are extracting from the plant, at some point you're going to have something within your possession that is all the THC that you don't want in that product. It's a byproduct, right? It's not something you're using, but if you have it in your possession, based on the interim final rules, you have a Schedule 1 still in your possession. So, and your whole shit can get shut down. And we were talking yesterday, Ivy Investor and I, about civil asset forfeiture. And so if you have that in your possession, even though you're running a fully legal hemp company, your entire manufacturing facility, the building that you bought or you made,
right,
could all be seized. Yes.
Ugh, that's so crazy. Well, yes, you do make a good point. The reason why I feel like the FDA will follow rule of New York State with their CBD guidelines as far as the FDA is because we're getting a new administration and they don't quite get it either, but they're willing to pretend to get it, which I think New York State is. These governor guidelines he's pretending to get this. He does not understand what's going on here, nor does he understand what's going on with THC. So I believe that they are going to follow suit with who they think gets it the most. And if New York State, which is like king of everything, especially king of blue, you're going to see rules and guidelines that follow that.
I think that totally makes sense. There's still going to be this gap. And so this is going to affect January 1st. And yes, we have an administration that's supposed to cross over the 20th if things work out the way they're supposed to, but it still takes time, still takes transition. I just am curious about how people operate in a space of gray when the federal government isn't aligned with your state's rules, new rules at that. But we do, again, have a lot of period of time to make that recommendations to change certain things. I don't think you should make the recommendations that they align with the FDA, though. I think that they should definitely be more pioneering. If they're going to set the standard, really set the standard. Stop strangling the plant. Stop trying to chokehold the plant. It's already chokehold. The fact that it's being designated to have less than 0.3% THC is all man-made. Nothing like that occurs naturally. In fact, you have to work very hard to not lose a whole harvest because you have too much THC, right? So it's just important for people to recognize that the government can have really disastrous impacts from the seed all the way to the sale throughout that supply chain based on the guidelines and the rules that they put in place.
Absolutely. I've been telling lawmakers lately to take the handcuffs off of cannabis. You guys have been handcuffing us for cannabis for over 100 years. You can't keep loosening it up. Just take it all off. Like, we don't want no handcuffs.
They're so scared, but for what? And then at the same time want to make money. You scared and greedy. Scared money don't make money, they say. And this is real facts about
somebody need to listen to hip hop a little bit more.
It's just facts. But no, I'm pleasantly surprised, but there is no claps that I can be given at this point because there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. I'm appalled, though, that there's so much strangulation around how hemp-based products are going to be manufactured, because that's a lot of what those rules are in New York. They're leaving a lot of money on the table as a result.
Hello. Well, thank you so much for dropping those jewels. We know that you gonna read them the act, okay? So let us review your public comment before we make them.
Oh, goodness.
We might need a Cliff Note version. No, I'm just kidding. There are some Cliff Note versions available online. Like, you could just Google it. A lot of people have read through them and made a lot of different recommendations. You got to find what's best with your heart, but always go with the science first. And then what do consumers want? And we want everything.
And we want it to be priced well. And so if there's too many rules, 9 times out of 10, we're going to see it in the price as well. So it's about a balance. We want consumer protection, but we want good prices. I'm definitely going to keep watching this. And if you haven't been watching me on Instagram Live, I do We Won, Now We Work. And this is something that I'll probably put into one of those episodes of We Won, Now We Work, because it's important for people to understand that if you're going to be a real cannabis entrepreneur, you got to be a real cannabis advocate. That includes the hemp side of things as well, because ultimately it's all one plant, y'all.
I know that's right. Well, thank you so much. And tell them you are doing it on IG.
Yes, I am. You got to follow me at Dasheeda Dawson on IG and on Twitter. I got a couple of tweetables, but IG is really where I get it lit at 9:08 p.m. Eastern time, a couple times a week. And sometimes I get to have some fun guests like the Ivy Investor and Mary Pryor, Roz McCarthy, Leo. Thank y'all for being my inaugural guest. Up next will be Dr. Rachel Knox. So
that's going to be real fun.
It's going to be real sciencey. If you want to learn science, come through. My sister and I will definitely talk about it. But yeah, it's been a busy week. We've been doing a lot of stuff.
Yes. And next week is Thanksgiving. We're going to do a quick episode next week because, I might be too rolled over from Thanksgiving to really talk. I might be a stuffed turkey by the end of that whole week.
We'll do a good episode. She's going to still be like, guess what we found out? Plus, we got to talk about what happens during quote unquote Black Friday for the cannabis market.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Definitely follow us at Instagram, She Blaze. And then you can watch us on YouTube, WeTube. Listen to us anytime on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts at She Blaze. Thank you so much. Have a great week.
Bye.